Hi there everyone, welcome back to Infinity Drones. This is our first video of 2024 and it's a good one. Let's cover all of the basics of the Dronehacks applications, the new features, and the one thing you really want to know about is the new drone support is the Mavic 3. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to open up the Dronehacks website. Simply just type in Dronehacks into Google and you're going to get to this page over here. You'll be presented with a page with a bunch of tabs at the top, but what's new is typically where you want to go first to see what new features there are and things like that, especially if you're an existing user. But I'm going to cover this video as if you are brand new and you've never used this before. So if you don't know what Dronehacks is, you can go to the About page. And on the About page, essentially going to tell you what features are available. Dronehacks enables you to remove the no-fly zones, essentially fly anywhere you want to. It enable FCC mode if you're outside of the US, so you can have a high output power for better range and signal. And you have some free features like parameter changing and flashing of firmware. On some drones, you can also enable some route, and on the auto drones, you can even increase the altitude limit to 2 kilometers. If you want more information, please go through this page. It is very informative, and I really recommend that you do go through this. And for those of you guys that are worried about the no-fly zones and things like that, guys, you are always going to be responsible for where you fly. The DJI no-fly zones in the app does not represent the laws of every country. That's just DJI's version of it. There's a lot of people out there that say these things in the DJI app is the law and that's how it is. That is not the case. Are they very accurate in some places? Yes, they are. Should you be aware of no-fly zones? Yes. This is not going to remove it from the app, so you're always going to be responsible for where you fly. Remember guys, you are the pilot, you should be responsible. Now, if you open up the Dronehacks website, you want to know what's going on. And the first thing you need to go check is the Birdmap. The Birdmap is going to tell you what drones are supported and what features are available. Remember, not all DJI drones are supported, but as you can see on this list over here, a large number of drones are going to be supported. So let me just click on a very popular drone. Let's click on the Mini 2. You'll see that it shows up a bunch of firmware because there's been lots of versions about, and you're going to see if you scroll down there is a recommended version. That's the latest firmware version in this case, and there's also an older firmware version for older drones. So in this case, if I click on this version over here, it shows that it has signal hacking, altitude removal, and no-fly zones, and I need to buy a license to do this. What the license is going to do, it is going to essentially load a license to your account, and then you can load or link that license to your drone. One license per drone. If you crash your drone, if you lose your drone, it is not transferable. It is only for that drone serial number. So please don't ask if you can move it from one drone to another. It's 40 euros. It's really worth it. Pay it. It's absolutely worth it. Just the FCC mode alone increases your signal range and just quality of experience is significantly more. However, if you are on the incorrect firmware version, it's going to tell you that you can load it on these ones. Let me just go to another drone where you can see it. In this case, you can see on the Air 2 that this is the recommended firmware version. Okay. If you are on the latest firmware version, it is not available. As you can see, altitude limit, no-fly zones, that's not available. However, you are able to downgrade to the necessary version via the application. So you need to buy a license that you can bypass the anti-rollback version of the DJI firmware so that you can go to the correct version. Okay, so this is the gist of it. You need to go to this page and you need to go check what drone you have and see what is available and what's not. In our case, we are going to flash the Mavic 3 today because it's the brand new version. So if you can see on this app, there's a bunch of firmware versions, but you can see if I click on it, we can only enable signal hacking on the Dronehacks application app. We did not have altitude removal or permanent no-fly zone removal. But now, on the latest version of Dronehacks, we are able to do them all. Now remember, the Birdmap shows you everything. 90% of your questions should be answered on the Birdmap. Always check the Birdmap. There's updates, there's new firmware versions coming out all the time. So this is a live and a working page. Okay. Now, once you've figured out what your drone is going to do, let's just use the Mini 2 for example again, and you go like, I want to know what this signal hacking thing is. I don't know. Let me find out what it is. If I go to the hacking tab, it's got a hacking page for you over there. You can click on that and it is going to explain to you what FCC is, how it's going to implement it, what you need to do, and how to check if it is enabled on your platform or not. As you can see, on most devices, especially if you're using the DJI RC or items like that, you're going to see that your FCC mode will look different from when it's in CE mode. In this case, you can see that the 90 dB line will be underneath the 1 km line, and if it's in CE mode, it will be equal to it. If you're on an iOS device, then it's obviously just the other way around. It's just above the 90 dB line, where otherwise it would be almost equal to it. Now you can go through all of them. If you have got a mini one or an air one, the older drones, you can see that there's all the information that you require over there. Now let's just go to the next one where we talk about the no-fly zone and altitude removal. Here's some more information on how this works. There's an unlock certificate where it will essentially give you permission to fly everywhere you want to until 2030. So it's a very long time for it to be available, and I'm sure they're going to extend it after 2030 as well. And if you are in India, for instance, and you've got a 50-meter altitude problem, then you can also remove that limit over there as well. Please remember, guys, if you are doing these things, you are responsible. You are taking control and you are removing the limits put by the drone. However, I want you guys to remove it, because if you are flying around and you are not going into a no-fly zone, but you lose signal, what's going to happen? The drone's going to fly back directly to its home point. And if there's a no-fly zone between you and the home point, it is going to hit a wall and it will not be able to go back home. So if you are flying, let's say, 20-30 meters above the ground, that's really no risk for someone else. If you are flying at, let's say, 150 meters plus, then of course you are in a dangerous area and you should be responsible. So reduce your altitude if at all possible, but the drone can at least get back home. Now, if you lost signal, then obviously you're not in control, but let's just say your battery is getting down and there's wind and there's problems, then at least you've got some way of getting your drone back safely without having any issues. A no-fly zone with DJI is when you hit a no-fly zone, it's like hitting an invisible wall, and you have to authorize yourself before you can go through. And in that case, many people might actually panic and they might actually lose their drone like this. So this is, for me, a very useful feature and thing to have. The altitude limit. A lot of guys say you should never fly higher than a certain amount. That is very true, but in certain places, like if you're on a mountainous area and you're doing search and rescue, you can easily hit the 500-meter limit and you can't help the people in the mountains anymore. So removing the altitude limit is also a very, very cool thing to do. However, once again, like with anything, please use it responsibly. Other options we have is free options to flash your firmware. Even DJI goggles, you can flash firmware. You can also change parameters. Like for instance, I've got a video on my channel where we remove the low battery warning. Essentially, you can fly a battery down until you drop out the sky. That is just useful, especially if you want to fly one way and you don't want to have return to home kick in at certain points, especially if you're flying the DJI FPV, where if the battery gets to a certain point, you can't. And if you're on the mountains surfing the mountain, then it can kick you into normal mode and you can't get back home. So that's something that's very, very nice to do as well. And then the last one is you have the DJI Companion app. That's an app you can load on your phone. No software required on your drone. You simply just enable certain features via the app and it just pushes it through to the drone. Very cool feature to have there as well. If we go over to the how-to page, this is where we show you how this works. You can click on FCC and it'll take you to the hacking tab, and there's a video on how to do it. Fly by Mavic makes some great videos. You can go watch his channel. Also shows you how to use the unlock certificate and all those items. But before you do any hacking, there's a few things you must do before, and this is what we're going to cover in this video as well. So you need to have DJI Assistant 2 for consumer drones installed on your machine. That is just going to have the required drivers and so that the PC can detect it. This is also only for Windows, so if you are a Mac user, please go ask someone that's got a PC. So with your hacking process, okay, if you've got a mini drone, then you need to turn on the drone and connect it to the computer and wait for it to chime, and only once it's chimed, then you plug it into the computer. There's a specific way that you do it, and you can simply follow it on the Dronehacks application. There will be a pop-up that is going to explain it. Or other drone, you turn it on, you wait for 30 seconds for the drone to start up properly, and then you plug it into the computer, and that's how it's going to work. Now that we are in 2024, Dronehacks has a new version out, but how do you get it? You click on the download page over there. It takes you to this page where it's going to show you this is how you're going to download it only for Windows 10 and Windows 11. It does not support Windows 7 and 8. Please use the correct version. Don't bother the support guys with versions that are not supported. Simply click on this little button over here and you're going to download to your machine. If you've got any problems or questions or something like that, you can go to the help tab, and in the help tab there are a bunch of options for you to go through. But if none of these are going to help you, you can go to the bottom and you can go log a ticket. Okay, so basically just click over there and you can contact support directly. So with this new release of Dronehacks 1.37, there is now Mavic 3 support. This currently only supports the Mavic 3. It does not support the Mavic 3 Pro or Classic or other variants of it. So we are still waiting for that to happen. But at least we've got something right now. Okay, so now let's get to what's new. Okay, 1.37 is the latest version of Dronehacks, and it is starting 2024 off with a big bang. We have wanted support for the Mavic 3 for quite some time, and they finally got it. Please remember, this is only for the Mavic 3. It does not support any other variants of it. So the Mavic 3 Pro, Mavic 3 Cine, Mavic 3 Classic are not supported currently. What you're going to do is you're going to flash to a pre-hacked firmware version via the Dronehacks application. You can decide which one you want depending on your needs, and we're going to cover that in a short little while with regards to what you are gaining and losing with the firmware versions. So the nice thing about this as well is that you are easily able to revert back to stock firmware if you don't want the hack anymore. Very, very simple, very, very easy to do. In this case, you can see there's a bunch of options that we're going to go through. So we just quickly go to the custom hack over here. So with your Mavic 3 custom firmware, essentially what we're going to do, there's a bunch of instructions that we need to follow. Everything is very clearly laid out on this webpage, and you can follow the instructions from top to bottom. I've already gone and downloaded all of the required software just to save some time, but let's just quickly go through what we need. You need to have the Dronehacks driver installed. This is a separate driver from the consumer drones, and you need to have consumer drones installed on your machine. I will go through the process of going and installing the drivers and stuff like that as well, so don't worry. If you are on this firmware version over here, you can simply just hack the firmware directly via the software. This is awesome because it's very quick, but very little people are going to be on this firmware version still. If you are, that's great, you can just continue. But if you are on a newer firmware version, we're going to have to downgrade to a pre-hacked firmware version. So in this case, you can see if you are on the newer firmware versions, we're going to need special files that you can see over here. So if you are on this version, good for you, but most of us will require this because of the firmware versions that came out with the cool new features. We've probably all upgraded to that already, and realistically all of us will be on a newer firmware version because the DJI FLY app always pops up with the upgrade one, and we usually tap the update button. Okay, so if you understand this process so far, that's great. If you have any questions, things like that, please remember to leave it in the comments below. I'm here to help. I want you guys to have a good experience. Okay, so even if we go for option number 1 or option number B, you still need to reboot the drone 2 times before the hack is loaded. This is very important, okay? So what we're going to do is just once you've loaded or hooked it up to your computer, you are still going to need to follow these processes, and we're going to go through it bit by bit. Please remember, no matter what option you've taken, obviously if you're option number 1, nice, or option number B, you still need to reboot the drone 2 times before the hack will be loaded on your machine. So even if you've gone through the software, you've flashed the firmware, the hack will not be activated until you've unplugged everything and restarted the drone 2 times. This is very important, and we're going to go through the process in the video as well. Then we're going to close the Dronehacks software, we're going to remove the USB cable, and we're going to reboot the drone 2 times. That is the process what you're going to do. See, it's very clearly set over here. It's not 4 times, it's not 6 times, whatever. Is once you've loaded the hacks, you close the application, you remove the USB, you reboot twice, and then you can connect back to the Dronehacks software again if you'd like to see if the firmware version has been installed properly on the machine. If things go wrong and something didn't go the way it was supposed to, you might reboot and you're going to see a serial number that's not the serial number of your drone. It has actually a recovery mode set over here. That is great, don't worry about it. The recovery files are right here, and you can simply just flash that to the machine, and once you've done that, you just reboot twice again and you will be back into normal mode, and you can then reattempt to do the mod again. So there's this is almost no risk for you guys to do this application. There's even a recovery mode for you in this application. I've already downloaded these files as well. I recommend downloading everything on this page, so when you do this, there's nothing that's going to stop you from completing it. When you've got the mod loaded, this is where the good stuff starts, guys. So Drone ID, Open Drone ID, and AirSense will automatically be disabled. This is fantastic news for all of you guys that are worried about Remote ID. Remote ID is still something in America that is being pushed, and this is not going to cover all of that, but Drone ID, Open Drone ID, and AirSense. So basically, DJI Aeroscope will be disabled. You'll also have full no-fly zones disabled, as well as altitude limits have been unlocked. The limit's actually set to 10 kilometers. You'll never get that high. But one thing that we want to say is another cool feature that they've enabled is if you are going to turn off the GPS, for instance, and you want to fly in ATI mode, which is a very cool feature it has as well, they do recommend that you drop the drone down all the way to around about 10 meters so that the obstacle, well, the sensors on the bottom of the drone can detect the ground again, and then you can just work from there as well. There's another cool feature that they've got as well, is that they have now given you the option to go into complete stealth mode. So essentially you can now, since you have to have drone ID and items disabled, you can now also go and disable your LEDs on the platform via the application, which is great. So you can turn it on and turn it off, but essentially making your drone completely black. There's also a very cool option to disable the GPS completely, meaning that you can fly in an upgraded ATI mode essentially, so that your GPS coordinates are always displayed as 0, 0. This is very cool because essentially that flight is not being tracked by the DJI FLY app at all, and if you turn off your LEDs, you are completely in stealth mode. So a very cool function to have. But the coolest part about this mod is that they are going to make it very user configurable. So you are able to modify your parameter or certain features in the DJI FLY app on the fly when you're in the app actually flying the drone. So simply open the DJI FLY app, go to settings, go to about, and you're going to have the section over here where you can actually edit the name field. Okay, now there are going to be a few options that you can go and change. At the bottom here you can see we can enable FCC mode on, or you can turn it off simply by typing it in there. And if you want to have multiple options in there, it's just separated by a comma. So FCC on comma will be the first option if you just want FCC mode to be enabled, but maybe you want the LEDs on or off. So if I want it off, I would have FCC underscore on comma, and then I would have LEDs underscore off comma as well. Click OK, and that is how it would be enabled. You can also have your bat land on or bat land off, meaning that it will try and disable the auto land feature if it reaches 10%. So that is a very, very cool function to have as well. So this is in a nutshell, the awesome new features that Dronehacks have brought. If you do not have a Mavic 3 drone, don't worry. All of the features that you see on the Birdmap are still there, and all of my previous videos like Dronehacks 1.35, all those ones, all of those steps will still apply. So if you do go through this video and something isn't very clear, please just go watch one of my previous videos. I'll put a link up at the top right for you guys to follow. But essentially the instructions on how to go through this whole process is extremely clear, and you'll see when we mod the Mavic 3 that you're simply just going to follow what's on your screen. It's a very simple thing. The guys from Dronehacks have done a fantastic job, and I really want you guys to support them. This is just absolutely fantastic. Now, before we go and mod the drone, let's just quickly go and tell you guys what you will be missing out on the Mavic 3. In my personal opinion, it's a no-brainer. Just enable the mod. FCC mode, if you're outside of the US, is already worth it, because it's already almost like a 40%, 50% increase in range, in some cases even up to 100%. So when you go to the firmware release page, currently, the drone that I've got will be on the latest firmware version. It's just a few minor bugs that they've updated, so there's no real new features on it. But the one that most of you guys are going to be sad about is on the version 1.200 at the end, where they've got the nice new augmented reality home point in it, and you can use your vision assist, basically watch through your obstacle avoidance cameras. But for me, those are all real gimmicks. The one thing I am going to miss is the home point. I find it very useful, but I'm going to lose that if I do this mod. I'll simply just have to use the distance and altitude meter on my screen that I had previously. So for me, it's not a real big loss. I don't really care about the vision assist system. The AR home point I'll be sad about, but it's not really a deal breaker for me. The one thing that I do feel that if you are going to flash to 1100 is that you still have D-Lock M support and you still have DJI Goggles 2 Integra support, which is very awesome because I own a set of goggles too. It's very nice to fly the drone like this. However, the recommended one that Dronehacks have is that they say you should flash back to 1000, meaning that you do lose your Goggles 2 support. However, it is supported. So I am going to flash to this version because this version is also supported. We've got pre-hack firmware version for it as well. It's just that Dronehacks typically just say the older the version you use, the more stable you are going to be. There's no real big difference. However, they recommend this one. However, they have complete support for this version as well, which means I'm going to downgrade to this one because I feel I lose the least features if I'm on this one. I want D-Log M, I want Goggle 2 support, but I really don't care so much about Vision Assist. AR home point would have been nice, but it's not a deal breaker for me. For me, I am going to stick to 1100. Okay, so I've already gone and downloaded all of the software that I need for the system, so I can start closing these little tabs. And you can see that I have already downloaded the firmware. I've also got the recovery firmware downloaded as well. I see one of my firmware is still downloading, but all in all, I'm only focused on this file over here, and I'm going to use the Dronehacks version 1.37, and I'm going to do the install. I've already gone and installed the DJI Assistant 2 for consumer drones. I've just had it on my PC for a very long time. When it pops up for an update, I update it. So I don't need to install this, but if you do not have this on your machine, you must install this. Okay, so the first thing you do is you click on driver installer, and it is going to pop up on your machine. And this is going to take a couple of minutes. Okay, so just let it run through the process, and once it's complete, we will continue this video. Okay, as you guys can see, the driver little window is now closed by itself. That means the driver has successfully installed, and we can now proceed to the next step. Okay, so the next step for me, it would be to open up the Dronehacks application and get my USB-C cable ready. You are going to see a little pop up on the screen. This is just Windows. We know it's good, so just click more info and click on run anyway. Once the application opens up, you will see it's starting to search for your device. I won't be able to log into the application yet because I need to turn on my drone first. If you do not have a Dronehacks account, then obviously you would have had to go and create an account a bit earlier. Okay, so now that we have the Dronehacks application open, I'm going to plug the USB-C cable into my drone and power it on. As you guys can see, my controller is still turned off. There's no need for your controller to be turned on. Just give it a second to detect. Okay, as you guys can see, it says something went wrong. Simply just disconnect and reconnect it, and it will then try and connect the drone. Simply put, if you have this, you can simply close the Dronehacks application and retry again. It might just be a driver issue or cable issue on your machine. Typically just try a different USB port and it'll work from there. So in this case, I'm just going to quickly close the Dronehacks application and run it again. As you guys can see, I have now just physically closed the application, unplugged the drone and plugged it back in again, and it's now working properly. So, as it's now detected the drone, it shows me my current firmware version that I'm on, but it shows me the recommended firmware that I should be on. And we will flash to that version pretty soon. But before I can do anything on this platform, I need to link my Dronehacks license that I purchased to my drone. So if it pops up and it doesn't detect the license over there, it will automatically pop up and show you this register regular license. If you don't have a license, you need to go purchase one. But if you have a license on your account, it will automatically pop up like this and you can just link it to your drone. So you can see now I have a license that's registered to this drone, and you can see that it is now listed on the app as well. And the app is automatically opening up the hacking tab for us to start. Now you will see the whole process will be explained in this section because I'm currently on the unsupported firmware, meaning that the hack can't work. So as you guys can see, it says downgrade available. If I don't know what to do, I can just click on how to, choose the firmware I want to flash, and then I can move on. We have already downloaded the firmware, so it's telling me to choose the firmware I want to flash, and then just go and follow the instructions. Well, okay, let me just click on that, and that means I need to go over to the Flash DJI original firmware version. If you're using an air-to-air or anything else, the how downgrade option will open up a page for you, and you will then be able to download the recommended firmware from there, only after you've purchased the license. In this case, I'm going to click on Flash DJI firmware. I'm then going to go and choose firmware. So in my Dronehacks folder here, you can see that I've got my stock firmware, I've got my pre-hacked firmware, and I want to go to this one. So all I'm going to do is just click on open. I'm going to click on flash firmware, and I'm going to wait for it to go through. As simple as that. Like I said, if you're using a different drone, then its steps are going to be very similar. A pop-up's going to happen telling you where to download the recommended firmware, but essentially the steps are remaining the same. So in this case, I'm just going to click OK. The drone's going to reboot a few times because it's just going to flash the firmware, and we're going to go through the whole process. So simply just wait for the process to go. If it fails for whatever reason, just simply restart the drone, unplug, do the whole thing over, and you can continue. In this case, we know the drone is going to restart quite a few times. You guys can actually hear it restarting in the background. If you guys like what I'm doing, please remember to click the like button and the subscribe button below. It really helps out the channel. I would love you guys to share this and share the word about the Dronehacks application, and make sure you guys support them as well. They are doing a fantastic job at giving us free reign on our products that we've purchased. Okay, so let's say you tried to flash the firmware and it's been now up to 10 minutes and the firmware still has not finished. Then what you do is you turn off your drone, you unplug it, you close the Dronehacks application, you will reopen the Dronehacks application, reconnect your drone to the computer, and wait for it to detect. It's sometimes just a USB connection error or something like that. Usually closing and opening the application resolves the issue. So in this case, I'm just going to drag this open. Device is connected. We're just going to wait for it to detect everything. Now once again, just want to remind everyone, if you have an Air 2S, a Mini 2 or something like that you need to downgrade, it will go to this loading exploit page, and it will tell you to click on a link so that it will take you to a web page where you can download the downgrade firmware that you can use. In this case, we just have the correct firmware from the start. So all we're going to do is we're just going to go straight to the downgrade or the firmware flash section, choose our firmware, and then take it straight from there. So in this case, I already have it on my machine. I want the 1100 firmware, and the only difference between these two is that with this one you can enable or disable all of the LEDs. With the other one, with 1100, you are only disabling the front LEDs, so the rear LEDs of the drone will still be available. But I want the goggles to support as well as D-Log M. So I've loaded my firmware, you can see it's loaded. I'm going to click flash. And now the drone's going to start the whole process and flash and restart and do all of that. And we are just going to wait for the process to continue or to complete. And there you go. The firmware is now being successfully installed, and it tells you exactly what you need to do. This is going to happen with all the drones that Dronehacks support. Once you've finished loading the firmware or the hack, it's going to show you on the screen what you need to do. In this case, remove the cable. So I'm going to remove the cable. I'm going to close the Dronehacks application. I'm going to restart the drone 2 times to finish the process. This is very important, guys. All changes will only take effect after the drone has restarted 2 times. And then obviously, never use DJI Assistant or the DJI FLY app to update the firmware, because then it is going to remove the mod. Okay, so I'm going to close this, close Dronehacks, turn the drone off. The drone has now been turned off the first time, so powering it on. Okay, we're waiting for the drone to power up all the way. And we know it's powered up all the way. As you guys can see, the rear LEDs are now flashing. It's the warning signs basically. So now I can turn it off again. Remember, this is one restart. We still have to restart another time. So this is now the final restart. Just give it some time. And there we go. It's now fully been restarted. You can see the rear LEDs are now flashing. You guys would have noticed that I have not touched the controller this entire time. It's not needed at all. You don't need to do anything on the controller or smart controller. But I'm going to turn it on quickly, and then I'm going to show you what you guys can do in the app to confirm that everything is the way it's supposed to be. So let it run all the way through, let it update, and then I'll show you. Okay, so you guys can see on my screen. There we go. It is now connected. I'm just going to quickly click, I'm just going to go up higher for you guys. I'm going to click on About, for the Settings tab. And then on the Safety tab, I'm going to scroll down all the way until I get to the GeoZone section, and you're going to see there's no unlocking licenses and there's no unlocking licenses, because this unit doesn't require it at all. If you were using any other Dronehacks, on let's say the Mini 2 or the Air 2, there would be a Dronehacks unlocking license on the unit over here. However, on this Mavic 3 with this mod, you do not have that at all. Everything will just be working. So how am I going to confirm that everything's working? I'm going to go to the Transmission tab. And then, as you guys can see, on this line over here, the 1 kilometer line is well above or well below the 1 km line over there, meaning that we are in FCC mode. For those of you guys that can't remember, on the Dronehacks website, we can just go to the Hacking tab, Signal Hacking, scroll down, and you're going to see that we are in FCC mode. Okay, so we have now flashed the drone, everything's working, everything's the way it's supposed to be. But let's just say I want to turn something off. I want to maybe work with the stuff. So once you've done your FCC mod, you can see everything's working, meaning your no-fly zones, your altitude limits, all of that will be fixed. If you want to remove the LEDs or disable FCC mode or the battery one, you can simply go to the name one and you can type in here whatever you want to as per the Dronehacks website. But I don't want to make any of these changes, because why would I want to remove FCC mode? It just doesn't make sense. So in this case, I'm just going to press cancel, and I'm going to enjoy the freedom that my drone has. We need to remember that the Mavic 3's mod is different than other Dronehacks mods. There's no certificate. Because of that, it's baked into the firmware and certain things are locked in. Take a look at the distance. It's now currently not being shown, but as soon as you go into the no-fly zone, suddenly it now shows. Similarly, it's going to show if you leave a no-fly zone again or the timer resets, it's then going to show your distance or not show your distance. Typically, it doesn't show if you enter a no-fly zone, then your distance is set to 0 or just nothing, and then when you leave it, the distance is displayed again. To fix it, you just switch over to sport mode and your distance will always be displayed. Just if you guys see it and you are wondering what's going on. You'll also notice that this timer at the top left is counting down and you think the drone is going to auto land in 70 plus seconds. No, it's not. It's just going to reach 0 and then either the pop-up's going to appear again or there's going to be no pop-up. So that's the main things that you need to know about the mod when you're using it. It needs to still operate via the DJI FLY app. So therefore, the stuff that you see on the screen is purely based on the FLY app. Hey guys, just once again, these Dronehacks guys, they do amazing work. If you guys are able to contribute or assist them in any way, please do. And also, if you like the video, the content that I'm making, please consider to click the subscribe button, click the affiliate links below, or leave a comment below. Everything is just going to help the channel grow so much. Thank you so much. Hope you guys love this video, and see you guys in the next one.